Welcome to the Self-Help Workshop with your host, John Farr. Episode 42, Spiritual Wellbeing with Marysia Do. All right, self-helpers, welcome back to the show. We've got a great guest here today. Our guest has been on before talking about her yoga practice. Now let's welcome back Marysia Do. Marysia, how you doing?
I'm doing so great. Thank you, John.
All right. So the last time we talked, we talked about yoga, and it was a little more oriented to the physical well-being. And so today I wanted to you're gracious to come back on, and I wanted to talk to you about the spiritual side of things. You know, the our spiritual well-being, and you know, as you know and I know, the physical is just a reflection of really what's going on in the inner self. And so, why not just go there and let's talk about it. I know you have a lot of thoughts, a lot of practices, things you teach and you help people with. So I wanted to just welcome you back on. It's great to see you. And let's maybe just have some fun talking about ways to improve spiritual well-beingness, however you want to call it. So real quick, you know, spiritual is kind of a big word, and might mean different things to different people. And so, for me, I just want to say I'm not talking about religion. We're talking about just the someone's inner self and how they take care of themselves. And so maybe you can just give a couple minutes of what that means to you.
Well, when I try to break down spirituality in a way that feels accessible, I think of the word spirited. When we feel spirited, our energy is vibrant and we're enlivened. And when our spirits are down, we're not feeling ourselves, where our energy is lower and our ability to engage with others is depleted. And our inspiration to engage in our own life is depleted. And I think at this point in the world where there is so much disease that's spreading, which for me is dis-ease in many ways, it is so vital that as a species, we all start to think about our spiritual well-being, because our spirits are fallen for many reasons right now.
So do you think? I'm sorry. Do you think as a society that we don't spend a lot of time on our spiritual well-being?
No, no, not at all. I think we override our sense of self in order to get things done, um, all the time for most people. When I consider the most pragmatic way to be with my spirit throughout the day, it's simply asking myself before I send an email, dive into work, eat food, hang out with people, do I feel energized by the idea of working on this email, hanging out with this person, eating this food? Or do I feel like, oh, I have to do this? The more time we spend doing the things that our society may call responsible, where we're overriding our body's natural feeling of like, this isn't good for me. I feel heavy at the idea of working on this and engaging with this person, but like I'll muster the energy up. Every time we do that, what we're trained from a very young age, that good girl or good boy behavior. I have to be a good boy and send out the email just in time for my boss. Like, it's so fundamental in our culture not to connect with the truth of how things that we're doing, people we're engaging with, activities we engage in, are affecting us. And for that reason, we're disconnected from our body and our wellness. We don't know our instincts at all because we spend all of our time calculating risk and living from our brain. But at this point, there is so much conflicting information out there that it's not working. We have statistics on all sorts of things now. And some people fit in, some people don't. Then the statistics, the recommendations change, and other people fit in, others don't. Sometimes we're blinded by what we're hearing. And so we figure out how to convince ourselves that we fit into a norm that nobody is normal. We were all born in different bodies. We were all born with different paths to walk. And the standardization of our healthcare system, of our education system, are really two of the major forces that have over the centuries divorced us from being the expression of who we came to Earth to be. And for each person, that's an individual experience.
Wow, you've covered a lot of ground there in a short period of time. So
Well, you're allowed to say.
Yeah, let me back up a little bit and just kind of recap some of what you're saying. So you're saying overall, you have this sense of that we're we're a little disconnected, and I think back to the idea of spiritual, and one of the my own definitions of spirituality is this idea of connectedness, that you yourself are connected to something greater than yourself. You're connected to you know all that is, so to speak. And so I think with the focus on, as you're saying, as the focus on, do this, do that, stay focused here, we're losing that actual connectivity with ourselves, and then it just translates into like a less of a connectivity with other people, and then it kind of creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of doom, where you're not energized, you're down, so you do things that try to self-medicate, and you don't have that inspiration to do the things you should be doing. I shouldn't say should, but things that would support a more vibrant, healthy life. Is that pretty much sum it up there? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we are all, when we awaken to our true nature, there's an interconnectedness of people working with each other in a way that is harmonious. The way that we have calculated in our culture how we're supposed to work together is not working.
Yeah.
Very clearly. Like, we are so divided. And one thing that I think is really interesting is right now there's so many squabbles about real issues, of course, with different circumstances around COVID, around race, around socioeconomic levels. But I think we're also being distracted from another form of spirit that we can connect with, that we're deprived of, which is our earth, nourishing food, spending time in nature and connecting with our true nature, breathing in fresh air, connecting with that element that makes up life, drinking clean water and playing in Earth's waters, and feeling a sense of support from this greater body from which we were born. You go far back enough in our genetics, we all come from the Big Bang. Like, we are all one. We are 50% the same DNA as a tree. That's how connected we are on a physical level. And our divorcing ourselves from our connection with nature is also divorcing ourselves with our connection to self and one another.
Yeah. So there's a couple things you said that were thank you. A couple things you said that were really key, and you said one thing, that we're all on our own journey. That's one thing I believe. We're all on our own journey, and we're kind of subjected to this standardization of how life should be. And the reality is, we are all on our own journey, and you want to awaken to your true nature. So even though we're all on our own journey, I think there's certain set points that we all share, and like the body's true true, the true point is like health, right? Your body, if is really wants to be healthy. And I think our true emotional set or spiritual set is joy. And so I think to get right, I mean, am I right or am I wrong? That's like,
Yeah.
it's like, look at kids. That's how they start out. They're just joy. They're, they're healthy and they're joyous. So, okay, well, that's how we start. And then we find ways to, go in different directions. And so what, and back to what you said, there's so many different ways to access that. So I don't think, I just want to make it clear. I don't think one thing works. One thing does. There's certain things that really you could say, yeah, it works for everyone. Obviously like breathing fresh air. Okay, yeah, that's going to work for everyone. Drinking clean water. I think, but there's also some other well-being practices that may work better for other people than say others. And so I just want to make that quick, statement that just listen, you're on your own journey, and we're here to support you and help you. However, it is important on whatever your journey is and wherever you're at to awaken to your true and vibrant self. And so you want to talk a little bit about some of the practices that because we can talk about everything that's wrong, and how disconnected we are, but let's talk about maybe some things that work to help, brighten the day.
Thank you. So for me, if I'm in a day where it is back-to-back calls, uh, rather than in between calls picking up my phone and continuing with that hyperstimulation, I'll sit back and breathe for 5 minutes, feel my breath in my belly, and take a moment to appreciate my body. Integrating little practices like that throughout the day takes remembering, and it takes a little bit of something at the start. At the same time, as much time as we can spend loving our body for even the most mundane reasons is so valuable. And it's something that's accessible almost anything that you do, going for a walk, taking that moment to say, like, thank you, earth, for birthing me and giving me legs and a place to go out and explore for a moment. Bringing that childlike joy back and appreciation to the little moments is something that's really accessible. And then doing things that make us feel good. So there are certain people that when I think about being with them, my energy just is like, yes, spend time with people that make you feel good. When choosing food, consider, like, does it, I know sugar is something that can get us overexcited. And in my background is also as an acupuncturist, and in traditional Chinese medicine, overjoy is actually considered pathological as well,
Sure.
because it can make the energy a little manic, and you see it in something like having too much sugar.
Yeah.
But you can consider, like, when I eat this, how do I feel? And that's something that's super simple. And it's a way, and before eating, taking a moment to consider. I mean, so much of our food has thousands of hands on it, from the person who grew it to the person who, um, cultivated the soil that it grew on, to, uh, how it got shipped, who was in the store putting the apples on the shelf. All of these things, the person at the checkout. I love, I love thinking about how many beings and how many forces had to come together to nourish me. And then playing with the body. I love doing yoga. I find that really fun to get to create cool shapes with my body and feel different muscles. And through that, I've refined my barometer of what feels good to me when I'm making choices outside the yoga room. The more we can practice feeling ourselves physically, the more we connect to that inner guidance that tells us how we want to navigate through life. And also, in addition to the people that we hang out with, choosing activities and, as best we can, work that feels fulfilling. And that's not always a choice for everyone. at the start, but practicing having thoughts of being more sovereign, of being more free, because in general, we're not a free society if we have to work a job we don't enjoy and spend most of the time doing something we don't like in order to
Yes,
survive. But to move to a place where you're more sovereign, there's got to be a belief that that's possible.
sure.
And starting to see that in little ways, um, and maybe asking your employer for ways that you can do things that you feel more connected to, and staying open to other pathways is in itself an enlivening practice. Journaling, envisioning, all of these things can be really helpful to live from a world that's more grounded in possibility rather than probability, because probability is, it's it's a little soulless, whereas possibility accounts for the fact that you are different and you are the exception to the rule, and you don't need to allow outside voices to tell you any different. But that takes a lot of inner strength to believe that.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think it's one thing you hinted upon is that everyone's capable of improving their life. You don't have to settle for, what you have. And you said a couple things, like small integrations. They really can add up to be. And you gave us some great examples of just breathing and taking time to just maybe set an intention to do something that creates you joy, to have a little bit of gratitude for what you're about to eat, and reflect on where it came from. So yeah, there's all these which are actually big things. Gratitude's like a massive thing. It's like books written on gratitude, and they continually, they study like people that are grateful or happier, and there's all that. However, they're just small integrations you can put. I think the big idea is that you have a choice, right? And that's I think what you're trying to say here is right. You have a choice, and there's things that you can do. And one thing about well-being and really of the spirit, right, is that idea of joy and fulfillment. And you touched upon it, with work. And one thing that came to my mind is, Buckminster Fuller said, the humans are the only species on Earth that have to earn a wage in order to live. And I think, you know, getting past that idea that you have to earn a wage to live is, 'cause that's kind of hard, and it's hard to, how do you connect to that? That's from a place
Yeah.
of like having to do, and
Mhm.
and so um,
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a chat with someone recently on a public platform, and there were people who listened that threw around the accusation of white privilege, and that's why you feel that you have this freedom. But I have a very global community, and so I invited some Middle Eastern students and other people from Latin countries to engage. And this girl from Aleppo, Syria, uh, you know, they went a year without electricity. She's gone very long periods with limited access to food and water, the walls of her home boarded up. And she believes with all of her heart that it's available to her. The practice of believing that is for, depending on your circumstances, and the beliefs that you inherited from your parents, is not always easy, but it's a commitment that everyone can make. She doesn't live in a place where they get to even say no peace without justice, because there will never be justice for her. If they speak up, they will be killed.
hmm,
And so, but she does believe in peace. She believes that that's something that is possible to find. And she takes small steps, and they've added up over the years. And she's doing it on her own. She doesn't have a community that fosters that, but she's choosing to build it. And I really admire her courage and her strength and her vulnerability as well, that goes into creating a world that is better for all of us.
yeah, Yeah, that's interesting to get that global perspective. There's one thing you touched upon in that, and I want to draw out of it is this idea of, because I think it speaks to what you're saying, is the idea of being in the present moment, right? So you can think, okay, the world's against me, and I'm not going to have this, and this isn't working out. There's injustice I'm going to face. That's all things that are like out there. But where are you in this present moment, and what back to what you're saying, like how do you find inner peace? Like you're not going to find inner peace next week, right? It's not going to happen. You have to find inner peace like within. You have to want inner peace and find it within yourself. It's not out there to get. It's something you draw out within. And I think it's what you're speaking is that this person has found ways to be okay even though it's not okay, and work towards, like, have that belief that I'm not powerless in this situation, and I can do things to make my life. My friend said, like a friend of mine, he always says, like, whenever you're down, he goes, just, or you're in a situation that's not good, he goes, just find a way to make, like, elements of your day groovy. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, there's ways to just be okay, So is that kind of what you were alluding
Yeah.
to? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to know that like bad moods are also all right.
Yeah,
And
sure.
if we have been in a position where the society or our parents or whatever has disempowered us, it's really important to be with the feelings of sadness and heaviness in order to
Sure.
heal.
Yeah.
So creating space and not, and I think in the wellness community, there can be this idea that feeling down is wrong. It's not wrong. It's okay. Like you said, you just be okay with it. And over time, these things will pass. I went through actually my first period of a quasi, I mean, I felt depressed
Mm-hmm.
for a little while. And I never had that experience before where I just didn't feel inspired to work. I didn't want
Sure.
to, I didn't feel like myself. And I was very despondent and lost feeling. And what I realized is I was trying to be a quiet person living a quiet life because I was feeling like my opinions and who I am is so offensive to some people that I might be better off watching from the sidelines. And where that might be a healthy choice for some people, we're all born different. And that's not a healthy choice for me. I'm not meant to quietly watch the world evolve. I'm meant to be a disruptor. And as soon as I started to speak my truth, even when there was negative feedback, I just felt alive again.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, okay, this censoring of who we are. And that's something that, when people have work that they're not connected to or are with a community that they may not feel supports them, they might lose that. And so I would encourage, like, if you do find yourself feeling weighed down, it is really valuable to wonder, like, how can I express my true nature better? How can I connect with my true nature better? And as we mentioned, like things like playing with your body, doing what feels good, connecting with nature, all of these are really valuable steps to connect with a greater state of authenticity where you're not validating or defending or fighting against anybody or any values, but rather just moving forward in the direction that you feel called to, that inspires you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well said. It's just so it's so important to do that, and I think sometimes possibly is we don't really we don't really take the time to examine the things that make us feel good, because maybe they're not the things, because we're always operating in this juxtaposition of what we think we should be doing, right? So let me give you an example. I just recently sold a house, and it was a second home, and it was in a nice like gated community, and nothing crazy, but it was a nice place, nice spot, sat right on a golf course, and I could walk to the clubhouse, walk to a rec center, walk to tennis courts, I played golf very little there. I played tennis like very little there. Um, didn't even go to the restaurant that much. I found myself spending time like in my yard building things. And that's just what I like to do. Now I enjoyed the the scenery of the golf course, and I loved, the animals, and I just loved the little golf carts running around. I loved the energy of that environment. My true expression was just breaking out ladders, being up on the roof, doing like just rebuilding the deck, just ripping my house apart and rebuilding it. And that's, like the best week of my summer was there, working, rebuilding my deck stairs, and just
Mhm.
finding that joy. Like, now it's a nice area. There was like waterfalls like behind the coffee shop in town. And so, listen, it was just joy. But that was me expressing myself. And I kind of had to reflect on that because so you're in a situation, you're like, oh, I should be out golfing, or I should be, like, doing other things and doing like the thing. And it's like, no, that's that's not where I'm at. It's,
Yeah.
I like breaking out my tools and fixing things. And I like, driving up to the lumber store with my wife and stopping for a coffee and like finding joy in doing that. And it's not this obligation, oh, I got to fix my stairs and I'd rather be golfing. It's like, no, I'd rather actually be fixing my stairs and just enjoying the backdrop of the golf course. And so it's not always easy to make that switch to this is what I like to do, because it's not like who the heck likes to tear down 2 stories of deck stairs and rebuild them, you
You
know.
can come over to my place anytime.
But I think that's some of that awareness that you're alluding to is like, how do you express yourself, and it's
Yeah.
and it's like getting away from some of the things that society might say you do, right, and just being unique about who you are. And just like you said, like you can't sit on the sidelines and and not be a disruptor. So that's cool. I just want to give a little example because of the example, it's like a golf course. So like you're like, man, you're like right at a golf course. But yeah, like my best week there was rebuilding my stairs. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. We all have a different flavor of fun.
exactly. Yeah. So
What is wonderful about this life. And I think also the desire for to have other people understand us is also, I'm at a point where it's like, do you feel me? Because the understanding thing, I'm not sure we're going to do anymore. But like, do you feel me?
yeah,
Do you feel my joy? Do you feel my connection? Do you feel my passion?
yeah,
That is something that transcends, we all have our own logic systems, and the desire to control another person's experience in a way through understanding is overrated. It's more about like, hey, John's living his best life over there. I feel that. Like, do
yeah,
that, brother.
yeah. Exactly. No, and I love sharing this stuff, and so it's why I do this podcast, because it's so vast, and you come back to a lot of big ideas. Like number one, like it always comes back to this, that you do create your own reality, and you do have control over it. And so, like, back to your friend, and that, what did you say, she was in Ethiopia? Was that where she was at?
Syria.
Syria. Still, she feels, from what I'm gathering, she feels like she at least has control over her own life, that she can create her own reality to a certain extent. So I think it's like one of the big,
Very much so.
yeah,
She's a fully empowered young woman, and she doesn't have people around her necessarily to look up to, but she's got YouTube. And I would also say, if you're looking for resources, teachers to help, because I think a lot of times also we carry around ancestral wounds
mm-hmm,
from our parents, where our frequency might just be that of disempowerment, and our nervous system is used to feeling a certain kind of low or a certain kind of angst, and shifting that normal in our body chemistry to a normal where we're lighter, does require often spiritual work because for many people, just doing the things sometimes feels uncomfortable because we're just used to having this feeling of being weighed down. Um, so you can go on YouTube. There's a woman who I love, Pura Rasa, and I mean, her inventory of free meditations is huge. And there are these free resources to help rewire your nervous system so that you're comfortable vibrating at a frequency of sovereignty and wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, yeah. YouTube's got some great resource of of things. Sometimes I'll put on some of the like the healing frequencies
Yeah, me
and just
too.
relax and it's just nice. It's just nice. Yeah. So there's tons of things out there, and yeah, the this whole idea of spiritual well being, it's an important one. And so, what are some of the things that you like to do, like that work for you? If you know, like say, like when if your days like your perfect like if you're perfect, say your perfect day, like your masterpiece day, what would there be some spiritual well-being practices in your masterpiece day?
Yeah, my masterpiece day changes day to day because I definitely like some mornings I like to wake up at 4 and I love having a solid hour to meditate, time to journal, light candles, say blessings. And then another perfect morning is laying in bed until 9 o'clock, feeling the sheets around my body, maybe listening to a guided meditation while I'm in bed, kind of falling asleep, waking up, paying attention, not paying attention, and just being a little bit lazy about it. It's not for me. Every day I'm a bit of a different person. So creating that space where I don't judge myself for having one mood or another is really helpful. But I will say waking early is lovely because there are a solid there's a solid block of hours where nobody else is pulling on you for your attention. So that's something that I highly recommend. And if that is something that calls to you, I would just offer that it took me about 5 years with the intention of waking up that early to actually get to the point where I do it like 3 times a week. And I'm satisfied with that. It's not when we set intentions, say you want to meditate. My husband started with 1 minute a day.
Mm, yeah.
And then over time, it turned into 45 minutes a day. And then some days it's 45 minutes twice a day. But these are things practicing feeding yourself with encouraging words and faith in yourself. I think that is the most consistent thing that I will experience on my magic day is just this consistent sense of yes and yes and I like a little drama in my day too. Like if there's a project we're working on and some people aren't getting along, figuring out how I can inspire, more connection between my people is um, is a fun challenge. I like a little bit of a challenge. It kind of turns my antennae on and helps me perk up. Um, and having time for yoga. Some days I'll want to have time for a nap, and some days I'll want to have the energy not to nap. But and a nap by nap, I mean between calls or something. Just we're doing this work from home thing now, so I can just lay down and close my eyes for 20 minutes and having that time to. I think something that's really important is not constantly taking in information. We won't know how we feel about things if we're constantly weighing other people's opinions about what we should eat, what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
All the like you corrected yourself when you used the word should, and I feel that way as well when I slip like that because um, expectations and um, following, from childhood, we want to be a good girl, a good boy, and that striving can rob us of our own self-awareness of what makes us feel good. So if we're trying to find the right diet trend or listen to the right doctor or a right teacher, and we're not taking pauses, what I would call a nap, but a wakeful nap, or just going for a walk, having time with yourself, there's no way we're going to be able to know what's best for us. All of us are the authors of our own wellness journey, and there is no path that will consistently support you better than, I like what this doctor said. Oh, but now I like what this spiritual teacher said. Oh, and then I like this, and I'll use this advice in this moment and this advice in this moment. And then when I'm in the mood, I'll do that. But I have this idea. I would actually, why don't I try this? And giving yourself space for your own creative inspiration to bubble up from inside of you.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and that I think you said something about the amount of information we're subjected to, and you kind of hit a timeout. Like, just I try not to start out my day with email and all that stuff. I try to just not even turn the phone. I turn my I'm on airplane mode. When I go downstairs, I just don't want any phone calls. Don't want any of that, and it can be a little challenging sometimes because you're kind of curious, like, hey, what's going on. However, I've really, like, that's like one little thing is like, no, have that time for yourself in the morning before you get into all that stuff, because that is other people wanting your time and attention. And I think for a lot of people that may be, because maybe one of the number one things. I mean, there's a energy healer I work with, which is we have a great time working together. And even she says, like, geez, I really got to watch myself with this stuff. It's crazy. And she says that a lot of her clients are into that. This is a lot of people in general she talks to have that issue, that challenge where it's hard to put it down. It's hard to put it down. And we can go into the science of all that. Now you get a little dopamine drip.
Exactly. It's
a little drip. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It feels good. It hits this need. And one other thing I want to bring up, because we kind of went around it a little bit, and we didn't really get into it too much. And it could be a little woo woo, but it's okay. Is that as humans, we have all these, and you talk maybe some things that are passed on from your parents and all that. Well, there's all these beliefs and things that are in our bodies and cells. And one thing that I just realized, and I heard a story from someone, actually the same person I was just talking about, is that when we have these traumatic events like a COVID, it's just like this global thing, they can actually trigger latent things in your body, latent fears, beliefs, things you wouldn't even thought about. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's what's happened a lot with this whole pandemic is it's triggered things. It's triggered these feelings, like I'm not a depressed person, but I'm kind of depressed, like things like that. And my friend, she said, she lives in New York, and she said, they go down, they have a little spot where they get their mail, a little box. And she said she was down there one day, this was in 2020, and her neighbor was there just crying, literally just crying. She was just crying. And she said that's they were in New York City. She said that's the way it is. Like, that's what this pandemic's done, is people just feel like so much has just come, all this stuff has come up. And so I think our chat's very timely, because I think, I felt it too, and so, the good news is there are things we can do, right? So, and they're not big, they don't have to be big things. And I think that's and there's one other thing, you talked about, like with your husband, he started with 1 minute. Well, here's like newsflash, there's benefit to 1 minute of meditation. There's benefit to one minute of breathing. There's benefit to 1 minute of exercise. Benefit of 1 minute of going out in the sunshine. benefit of 1 minute of drinking some clean water, right? I mean, the list can just go 1 minute of gratitude, 1 minute of, even a nap, just taking a nap for a minute. Naps are only like 20, 30 minutes. So there are a lot of things, like you alluded to, people can do that, that aren't big. They're not big commitments in time, money, or energy. However, they have benefits. So.
Yeah. And I think that awareness that it just is a little bit, and you don't need to get it right the first day, first week, first year. For myself, I mean, my dreams and what I see for this world are so, so big. I see a whole other realm of possibilities. And if I were to try to figure out intellectually how that's going to happen, I would be so discouraged if I were to calculate everything that happens that doesn't align with that dream in my small awareness in this moment. I could be discouraged. But if we just practice, oh, I forgot my minute meditation. Well, I remember now. Next time I'll try again. And cultivating that lightheartedness helps us sustain the energy to keep trying. And that is really important, that we don't give up on ourselves and we don't give up on the possibility that we could do better in our self-care. And there are some situations where we have inherited a lot of self-doubt, a lot of grief, a lot of heavy things that are difficult to move through, that may create thoughts in our mind that are discouraging. And the practice of rewiring how we process information can be done with a similar kind of energy as strengthening a bicep. Like, you pick up your dumbbell and you do your 10 curls and you cultivate that muscle. You watch your mind and maybe you put on a track and listen to some affirmations, or every time you notice your mind spinning down a dark path, maybe you can't steer your mind just yet, but you can think to yourself like, oh, there it goes again. Like, I'm hating on myself. And just having that level of separation between the intensity of the thoughts that are all wrapped up and in that insane space, and like the awareness of that happening, can help create enough spiritual distance that over time we can start to disassociate with that disturbing chatter and start to rest more into the awareness of like, okay, I'm having a human moment.
Mm-hmm.
I might need to cry. I might need to, yell at someone for a moment, but I'll get over it, and I'm moving through this. That level of forgiveness of ourselves and a sense of entitlement to be valuable, to be human, is what gives us the space to continue to, and the energy to continue to show up for ourselves and grow.
Yeah, because that's what we're going to do either way. We're going to just continue to grow, and are you making it easier on yourself? Or are you making it harder on yourself? I mean, I think the reality is, as humans, we tend to get there in the end, no matter what. I think even, you kind of like, you have that final awareness of, oh yeah, I made it a little harder than it needed to be, but there are things. There just are things you can do, and yeah, it always comes back to awareness. Like, are you aware that you have the power to, have a groovy day, no matter what happens? It's raining, so is your day ruined? It's like, no, your perception of what you were expecting to be on this day is not, didn't happen. Doesn't mean your day's ruined, and yeah, and I've just learned from a very wise person that just everything is perfect, and that you just have to go with that mantra. And when you're saying everything's perfect, generally what's going on around you is not so perfect. But you got to trust in the moment, right? That
Mhm.
it's okay. You're going to learn from this and be okay. So, how important so cuz so like all right, so let's go back to the very beginning. And you talked about medical doctors and our society and all this stuff that we know. So you go see a doctor. You say, all right, well, your BMI is at whatever 27, so we need to get that under 25, and you got this and you got that. So you need to eat better, you need to sleep better, you need to get more better hydration, get your cholesterol down. So there are things that you should do physically. However, what they didn't address was that spiritual well-being. And so just thinking about this, like, so there is, you're correct, there is like this constant um, disconnection to our well-being and our physical well-being and our spiritual well-being. And do you see that changing anytime soon through modern medicine?
I don't know. I don't know about through modern medicine unless more doctors start to connect with healers. For myself, like emergent situation, thank goodness. Like I have so much respect for the technology that we've created, but like right now, I'm an expecting mother,
Mm-hmm.
and going to a technology forward facility for a natural event, unless there is an emergent situation, is insane.
Yeah.
It's really insane. And when we look at doctors and their health, many doctors are overweight, many are smokers, at least in my experience, and their inability to follow advice that they prescribe in and of itself speaks to a level of disconnection between creating well-being and dictating it. And um, I don't know that medical doctors are equipped. They don't need, I don't even think they take nutrition class in medical school. So that's a big piece of the puzzle that's missing. But also, I mean, everybody knows diet and exercise. It's
Yeah.
not that simple. Eat natural foods and move your body. The inability to show up and do that comes, I believe, from working jobs we don't like and being in front of screens and just getting into a place of some depression. And so when I think of the people I know, myself included, who, I was never terribly overweight, but I definitely experienced a period of my life where I didn't feel as good in my body. And I think that that healing really started for me when I stopped trying so hard to do what I was told to do and instead started loving um, taking care of myself. And instead of doing it from this perspective of fear driven um, anything or guilt driving, like for me, I'm at a point right now where if my motivation is fear or guilt, that is not a good, I'm not
Yeah.
making a wise choice. For me, when I choose to eat food that makes me feel good. When I move my body, I choose to do things that feel enlivening, not because I'm supposed to, not because I have to. And I'm someone who craves freedom. You tell me to go right, I'm probably going to go left. It's just my nature. And um, in order for me to make decisions that are sustainable, I have to come to them from a place of it coming from inside of me rather than an outside source telling me. And self love is one of the most important factors to inspire someone to treat their body well. And I don't know how medical doctors can inspire self love when they're just telling you that your body's not good enough.
Yeah. It's yeah. Exactly. it's like there's that missing piece, you said, you kind of have to want it. You got to have that desire. You got to have that self love that you want to be healthy. And then it doesn't really matter, because once you have that desire and that willingness to get healthy, you'll find a way to get healthy. You'll figure it out. You might have some trial and error. However, the thing is that the medical community, they have the credibility, and so people that aren't aware, that haven't developed their awareness and their intuitive nature to just trust, to understand that disease is dis-ease. And so how do you get out of that dis-ease and into ease? It's probably not a physical thing in a lot of cases. There's a belief going on. There's something going on that really you need to work at. And I think that's my
Yeah, I agree.
my opinion. If you don't like the results you're getting, well, look at the beliefs that you have around that thing, and you might get some clues into what's going on internally, and then you can maybe work on changing the beliefs, and you'll change. You might change your results. A mentor of mine says, when you ask different questions, you tend to get different answers. And I think maybe that's really part of the talk here today is, everyone wants to be healthy, and they're going to like you said, diet and nutrition. What about your spiritual side of things? How does that affect your overall well-being? And let me ask you that. So how do you think overall, how big of a piece is that into your overall health, the
It's
spiritual side of it?
everything.
It's
They are inextricably linked. There is no separation from one than the other. When I was going through my period where I was depressed, I was seeking help from healers and people that in the past had been able to help me weren't. And I, one of them passed on this belief that I'm a transmuter of energy and it's my responsibility to cry for the world. And during this period, she said, you cry because others can't. And I was like, oh, fine, like, I guess. But, when you're spending a couple hours every other day crying, and I started to just have a chronic cold, I had to keep going. And eventually I met someone who explained to me, because I could literally feel myself falling into the background of my own life.
Hmm.
I felt myself just becoming a witness to, and that's of everything, and not someone who's actively alive and participating. And I spoke with this one healer, and I don't, for me, I prefer to speak to spiritual healers
Mm-hmm.
and some massage work. And for me, that's enough attention. I don't need medical attention. And she said, it sounds weird, but it's actually your ego wanting validation from the people around you that's making you feel like you should be quiet. Um, Not your ego driving you to speak out. Your nature is to speak out. So it's like everybody's different. Some people are making the noise because they need the attention. I'm making the noise because I have something to say, and ignoring that because there's this idea of like being a spiritual person means, and a woman too. I definitely experienced from a couple different healers that like true feminine nature is quiet and it's humble. And that's not my, at least at this point in my life. I'm 36. I'm still in a position where I intend to evolve my whole life, and there may be a point where I do become more of an observer, but that's not my true self. And so, even though I've done 20 years of yoga, I still found myself in a position where I had to rework so many things, because through this COVID thing and so this cancel culture, I had started to dim my own light out of fear of, a certain level of persecution. And I had to realize, through a lot of deep inner work and questioning and trying again, and not always getting the best advice for me, just because a healer is effective for many years doesn't mean that they'll continue to be that person. And I think that that's a really empowering awareness, that you don't need to be a sheep to anyone that you admire. Just because someone gives out years and years of amazing advice doesn't mean that they'll always know what's best for you. And if you're feeling off, there will be a way forward, and everybody deserves to feel well. And it's simply a practice of continuing to believe that there's another way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. I think use that term like rest on your laurels, so to speak. That all right, I had this thing, it worked, it works for me. I'm gonna do that. Well, the world's constantly changing. We're all constantly changing, and so maybe your go-to is no longer your go-to after a while, and that's great that you had that realization. So you're not trying to do the same thing if it's not working, and that's important. I think you answered my question about how important your spiritual well-being is, and like how to identify that. So for the listeners that want to maybe dive into this at a little bit deeper level, what do you recommend for the first rung of the ladder, taking the first bite of the apple? What are the baby steps that people can maybe, if you want to just practice well-being on a daily, weekly, and maybe a weekly basis, like 3 or 4 days a week, maybe start. I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, like, let's all just take a pause.
Okay.
Inhale deeply through your nose. Hold it. Exhale out your mouth. Feel that. Sit up a little straighter. Relax your shoulders if there's any unnecessary tension, and let's do it again. Inhale deeply. Out your mouth. Then one last time. Inhale. Feel it. Out your mouth. Sighing is so glorious. And it's something you don't need to do 3. You don't need to, sit up even or close your eyes. It helps. But noticing, like, I'm feeling your body while you're going through the day, and noticing I can feel my shoulders tensing up. Just taking moments throughout the day to notice how you feel is a huge gift. And you don't need to fix it right away. The awareness is enough. And then taking an extra sigh. If you have 5 minutes, placing one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and feeling your breath and connecting to your body. Our breath is our life force. It is our most effortless and powerful thing that we do. When we are connected to our true nature, we flow through life effortlessly, because there is a wisdom in us that's reflected in the breath that already knows how to nurture and do all the things. It's our head. Thankfully, our head can't really influence our breath most of the time, because it would probably mess it up. But taking and then going on YouTube, finding different meditations, finding movement classes. I have an app, Marysia Do Magic, that you can get in your app store, and there you can find meditations. I have a meditation challenge. So if you're someone that's motivated by certain like checkpoints, through the app, you can do a 30-day yoga challenge, or a 30-day meditation challenge, or a 30-day journaling challenge. Those are things that can help going out for walks, as we mentioned, spending time with people who make you feel more vibrant. These are all practices that you can do. Have a plant in your house. Look at it. Look at the texture of the leaves. Take time to marvel at the shape of clouds. Like, the clouds are so cool. It's so amazing how, even though there's those larger currents, when you look at the clouds, you see how many different directions the wind also swirls in. It's, and this is part of what created us. Like, we are a summation of natural elements. And then, we've added in a lot of artifice too. But like, when it comes down to it, the more we spend time connecting with things like plants who don't have opinions, they just exist and grow and do what nature put them here for, the more we can, by osmosis, be reminded of our own nature.
Yeah, that's plenty of examples there. Yeah, that's great. One thing I've added into, I'll share this one real quick, is composting. Now, I don't really consider that a well-being practice, but in the context of everything you just said, it kind of is, because I feel it makes me feel good doing it. You know, it's like that little thing. It's just like, I'm just doing this. It feels good. I don't want to put banana peels in the trash, or I want to put them in my compost pile where they, go back to nature. It's just like, yes, that's where they should be. So,
That's
like,
beautiful, and it connects you to the earth. But if for you, like, you want to just like throw on a Madonna album and dance, great.
yeah,
Like, whatever enlivens your spirit, explore it.
yeah. I think that's it. I think, to sum it up, yeah, find whatever is groovy for you. I use the word groovy, and to liven your day, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. And they say, like, a smile from another person, like, can energize you for the entire day. Just a little bit of a love between two people is so powerful. And so, just, like, cultivate that self-love with your, it's just, you're going to be better off for it, right? There's just, you can't, and one of the things is, you can't do it wrong. Like, you can't do it wrong. If you're trying to do things that make you feel good, there's no way to do it wrong. Someone might say, "Oh, you didn't do it right," but as long as you felt good, you got to benefit from it, right?
Totally.
Cool.
Totally. I love how you threw in smiling at people, hugging people. Humans need humans.
Yes,
And that's a really beautiful offering. So thanks for sharing that.
absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for sharing the news. Being an expectant mother, that's just wonderful, and you'll be an amazing mother. I know you will. And so,
Thank you.
congratulations on that. And any other last words before we sign off here?
Just keep believing in yourself, despite whatever else is going on, despite any wayward thoughts. Underneath that, no, no. This is your world, and you can create what you like of it.
All right, Marysia, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. This was awesome. It has a lot of wisdom, a lot of a good vibrations feeling on my end here. I'm excited to have you back, and thank you for coming on. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Thank you. This is really wonderful work you're doing. So
All right,
thank
thanks.
you.
All right, so for the Self Help Workshop, I'm John Farr, wishing you all the best. Take care.